Welcome, my brother, to the elevated within. You have found your way here because the air in your home has grown thin, hasn't it? You've realized that while you share a roof, a bed, and perhaps even a bank account, you are living in a profound, echoing silence. You are here because you are searching for a name for the phantom that haunts your marriage. Before we begin this journey into the heart of the frozen hearth, I want to invite you to join our circle. Please, take a moment to like this video and subscribe to our channel. By doing so, you anchor yourself in this community of men seeking higher ground, and you ensure that these words of elevation reach every brother still wandering in the dark. For years, you may have told yourself that this was just a phase. You told yourself that once the kids were older, or the mortgage was paid, or her career settled down, the warmth would return. But as the seasons turned, you realized the cold wasn't coming from the outside. It was coming from within the relationship itself. You are experiencing something far more complex than a simple low libido, or the natural ebbs and flows of a long-term union. You are living with a wife who is practicing what Dr. Weiss calls Intimacy Anorexia. Dr. Weiss, a pioneer in understanding the mechanics of relational health, coined this term to describe a specific active withholding of emotional, spiritual, and physical intimacy. It is not a passive drifting apart. It is a proactive, often subconscious decision to starve the relationship of the very nutrients it needs to survive. And if you are the husband in this dynamic, you know the specific agony of being a beggar in your own castle. You are the man who provides, who protects, and who loves, yet you are treated like a stranger. Or worse, a roommate whose presence is merely tolerated. In the ancient world, the hearth was the center of the home. It provided warmth, light, and the means to sustain life. In a marriage, intimacy is that hearth. When your wife is an intimacy anorexic, she has essentially walked away from the fire and begun systematically extinguishing the embers. It starts with the withholding of praise. Think back. When was the last time she looked you in the eye and told you she was proud of the man you are? When was the last time she acknowledged the weight you carry for the family without adding a but or a criticism immediately after? For the intimacy anorexic, praise is a bridge, and she is in the business of burning bridges to keep her heart on a private island. This withholding is a form of control, though she may not see it that way. By denying you the validation that a husband naturally craves from his wife, she maintains a position of power. If she doesn't let you in, you can't hurt her. If she doesn't admire you, she doesn't have to fear losing you. It is a defense mechanism forged in the fires of her own past, yet it is currently burning down your present. Then there is the staying busy trap. This is a hallmark of the intimacy anorexic wife. She is the queen of the to-do list. She is perpetually exhausted by the laundry, the school schedules, the church committees, or her professional obligations. On the surface, she looks like a hero, a woman who does it all, but you, brother, see the truth. You see that this busyness is a shield. She uses her productivity as a legitimate excuse to avoid being present with you. When you try to initiate a conversation that goes deeper than logistics, she has a task that needs finishing. When you seek a moment of physical closeness, she is just too tired. It is a sophisticated form of rejection because it is cloaked in virtue. How can you complain that she's working so hard for the family, and yet you are starving? Dr. Weiss points out that this behavior often leads to the blame game. To justify the distance she creates, the intimacy anorexic must make you the villain. If she is cold, it is because you didn't do enough around the house. If she is distant, it is because of something you said 3 years ago. If she is uninterested in physical intimacy, it is because you don't make her feel seen. You find yourself in a labyrinth where the walls are constantly shifting. No matter how much you improve, No matter how many chores you do or how much emotional labor you take on, the goalposts move. The anorexia remains because the problem isn't your performance. The problem is her fear of being known. You are living in the roommate phase. Amaras, but it is a roommate situation with high stakes and deep emotional debt. You share the logistics of life, you coordinate the calendar, you perhaps even parent well together. But there is no us. There is only I and you living parallel lives. You feel the sting of the invisible rejection every single day. It's in the way she turns away in bed, the way she checks her phone when you're talking, the way she avoids your gaze when you come home from work. It is a slow, methodical erosion of your masculine spirit. To understand the wall, we must first look at the architect. It is a natural human instinct to view rejection as a personal verdict, a statement on our attractiveness, our competence, or our value as men. But when you are dealing with a wife who operates through the lens of intimacy anorexia, you must realize that her distance is not a reflection of your inadequacy. It is her primary survival strategy. She is not reacting to who you are. She is reacting to the concept of being known. Dr. Doug Weiss identifies this as a defensive posture, often rooted in a deep-seated fear that intimacy equals loss of self or the inevitability of pain. In her mind, to let you in is to give you the power to destroy her. Therefore, she builds a fortress. But this fortress isn't made of stone and mortar. It is constructed from the subtle, daily habits of withholding. To navigate this as an elevated man, you must stop looking at the wall with anger and start looking at the blueprint with clarity. Dr. Weiss outlines specific behaviors that characterize the intimacy anorexic. The withholding of spirit is perhaps the most painful for the man seeking a true partner. You ask her how her day was, and she gives you a list of chores. You share a dream or a worry, and she responds with a fine or a shrug. She keeps her internal world under lock and key. By withholding her spirit, she ensures that there is no us, only two individuals sharing a zip code. She effectively shuts down the spiritual and emotional connection that differentiates a marriage from a business partnership. Then there is the withholding of physical affection. We are not just talking about the bedroom, though that is often the most visible casualty. We are talking about the non-sexual touch, the hand on the shoulder, the hug when you walk through the door, the sitting close on the couch. For the intimacy anorexic wife, all touch is a slippery slope toward an intimacy she isn't prepared to give. She may recoil from a simple touch or ensure that there is always a physical barrier, a pillow, a laptop, or a child between the two of you. One of the most effective tools in the architect's kit is the strategic critic. To maintain distance, she must find a reason why closeness is impossible. If she is the victim of your perceived failures, she has a moral justification for her coldness. Have you noticed how she keeps a meticulous ledger of your mistakes? Things you said a decade ago are treated as if they happened 10 minutes ago. This is not because she is unforgiving in the traditional sense. It is because those grievances serve as the bricks in her wall. As long as she can focus on your flaws, she doesn't have to address her own inability to connect. The elevated perspective requires you to see this for what it is: a disorder of intimacy. When a person has a physical ailment, we do not take their symptoms personally. If she had a broken leg and couldn't go for a run with you, you wouldn't feel rejected as a runner. Intimacy anorexia is a break in the soul's ability to connect. She is operating out of a deficit. She is not withholding from you because you are unworthy. She is withholding because she is empty or terrified. This understanding is the first step toward your own liberation. You have spent months, perhaps years, looking at her closed door and wondering what was wrong with your knock. The truth is, the door is bolted from the inside, and the person behind it is convinced that the man outside is a threat to her equilibrium. There is a specific kind of gravity that exists in a house where love is withheld. This is the sinking anchor. As a man, you were built to be an explorer, a builder, and a provider of strength. But when you are tethered to a spouse who practices intimacy anorexia, that anchor doesn't keep you steady in the storm. It pulls you down into the depths of a silent, suffocating sea. A man's spirit craves to be seen. He craves to be known by the woman he has chosen to protect. When that woman systematically denies you access to her heart, her thoughts, and her body, it creates a fracture in your identity. Dr. Doug Weiss often speaks of the partner of the intimacy anorexic as a person who is living in a state of chronic deprivation. It is a form of relational starvation that mimics the symptoms of psychological trauma. You might find yourself becoming hyper-vigilant, constantly scanning her mood to see if today is the day the wall might have a crack in it. This constant state of alert drains your masculine energy. Instead of using your strength to build your kingdom, you are using it just to survive the rejection in your own living room. This rejection works like a slow-acting poison. It starts with your confidence. The intimacy anorexic wife is a master at making your normal human desire for connection seem like an unreasonable burden. She may label your pursuit of her as pressure or your desire for conversation as interrogation. Over time, you stop asking, you stop reaching, you retreat into your own shell as a survival mechanism. This leads to the false oasis, inne. When a man is starving in a desert of intimacy, he is susceptible to the mirage. You may find yourself tempted to seek validation elsewhere, workaholism, digital numbing, or emotional affairs. But I want you to hear me clearly, brother. These are traps. They are salt water for a man dying of thirst. You must remain a man of honor, not for her, but for your own soul. The answer lies in the shift from external validation to internal sovereignty. You must stop using her as the mirror for your worth. If you look into a broken mirror, you will see a distorted image. Her intimacy anorexia is that broken mirror. You must learn to anchor yourself in something higher. This is not about becoming cold like she is. It is about becoming contained. It is about realizing that your happiness cannot be a hostage to her withholding. We reach now the summit of our journey, the elevated path. This is where the path of the victim ends and the path of the sovereign begins. To walk this path, you must first confront a hard truth. You cannot fix her. You cannot love her out of intimacy anorexia. Dr. Doug Weiss is very clear. Intimacy anorexia is a sophisticated addiction to withholding. Your attempts to compensate for her distance are actually enabling the disease. When you overfunction to keep the marriage looking normal, you are shielding her from the reality of her own choices. The elevated path requires you to set elevated boundaries. A boundary is a sacred fence to keep your peace in. It is not an ultimatum born of anger. It is a declaration of reality. Setting these boundaries often involves a calm, resolute presentation of the truth. It may involve writing a letter that outlines the specific behaviors you have observed and stating clearly that you can no longer live in a roommate arrangement. You are offering her a choice: to enter into recovery or to continue her path of isolation. But here is the key, brother. Your peace can no longer be contingent on her choice. You must become result-independent. If she chooses to do the work, you will be there as a partner. But if she chooses to stay behind her fortress, you will move your life into the sun. You reclaim your sovereignty. You become so grounded in your own high vibration that her coldness no longer has the power to lower your temperature. I want you to consider the concept of radical self-stewardship. You have been given one life and one masculine fire to tend. If you begin to feast on the things that nourish a man's soul, wisdom, brotherhood, physical mastery, and divine connection, you become a beacon. Before we conclude this session, I want to ask you once more to like this video and subscribe to The Elevated Within. Your support helps us build a lighthouse for the brothers still lost in the fog of silent marriages. As you move forward, carry the peace of the mountain. The mountain does not move because the clouds refuse to rain. You are that mountain. The intimacy anorexia of your wife is a storm that has lasted a long time, but it does not define you. You are reclaiming your joy. There is a world of beauty, connection, and deep masculine purpose waiting for you outside the walls of the frozen hearth. Whether she joins you or not is her journey. Your journey is upward. It has been an honor to walk this path with you, brother. Remember that you are never truly alone in the silence. Speak your truth. Live your purpose. Stay elevated. Go now and lead your life with the dignity of a king and the serenity of a sage. Farewell for now, brother. Be at peace.